This is the Voice of Russia. The London Bureau of the Voice of Russia is now live on digital radio and online, with news, comment and debate on weekdays between 4 and 7 p.m.
You're listening to the Voice of Russia in the heart of London. I'm Tim Walklate, and this is the first of several special discussion shows on Euro-2012. We've now seen every team in the tournament play at least once, with the Euros throwing up some shocks and surprises only 5 days into the competition. Off the pitch, it's been marred by reports of racism and xenophobia among some sets of fans, but now the tournament's underway, we've seen some fantastic games of football in Poland and Ukraine. Joining me in the studio is Tim Rolls, who's a sports blogger, Tom Hedegard, who's a Voice of Russia reporter, and on the phone from Warsaw in Poland is Richard van Portvlied, who's Russia Today's sports reporter, and Andrew Warshaw, a freelance football writer. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. So, a busy week of football so far, but let's start with Group A. Which has actually seen 2 rounds of matches so far. Yesterday, Russia and Poland cancelled each other out with a 1-1 draw, and the Czech Republic beat Greece 2-1. Meanwhile, last Friday, on the opening day of the tournament, the Russians thrashed the Czechs 4-1, and Greece and Poland drew 1-1. So, first of all, let's just hear what Russia's coach Dick Advocat had to say the other day about his team's chances for the tournament.
There's a really good atmosphere in the group, but in reality, it's only when things stop going your way that you show your true colours. Everything's going well.
So, Richard van Portvlied from Russia Today. The British media praised the Russians for their technical prowess and performance in their first game against the Czechs. Now, is that impression being echoed out in Poland and maybe in Russia too?
To a certain extent. I think it was 2 completely different games, the game with the Czech Republic and the game against Poland. Poland really set out their stall to try and defend. They had 3 sort of holding midfielders, really, to try and stop Russia's surges from midfield through Roman Shirokov, and also to try and cut back the supply to the three-pronged attack, and they did that very, very well, to be honest. The likes of Shavin, Zagoyev and Kezhikov were given very, very little space to try and do anything, and it was really actually a very impressive display by the Poles, I thought, last night.
Andrew, were you impressed with the Russians?
I concur with a lot of what Richard said, but when a country comes into the tournament, Richard will know better than me, I think it's something like 1 competitive defeat in 2 years, or something on those lines, then they're bound to be a force to be reckoned with. And I thought, obviously, they played the Czech Republic off the park. Poland was always going to be a more difficult game. The host nation had to get something from the game, because otherwise, effectively, they were out of the tournament. But we saw a side of Russia, the other side of Russia, and I was quite impressed by that. They dug in, they got their point, and I would expect them just about to top the group.
What did you make of Zagoyev, who's kind of been touted as the starlet of Russian football?
Well, I tell you what, you may know this, Tim. I'm a fanatical Tottenham Hotspur fan. I wouldn't half like him at our club to replace Roman Pavlyuchenko. Richard, again, will probably know the gossip about if Duggart's going anywhere. But no, listen, to be serious, hugely impressive, fantastic technique. And in both matches, he showed what he could do, especially the first game against the Czechs.
And Tim, in the studio, what did you make? What have you made of the Russians so far?
I thought the first game they were excellent. They played probably the best football of the tournament. They were really direct and they looked like they really wanted to score goals. Last night was tougher, but I thought they played well. As the other guy said, they dug in well, and I think they can go a long way in the tournament. I think they'll win the group, and then we'll see what happens then.
I think one thing that possibly was raised in the first game was maybe a lack of a real strong out-and-out striker. Richard, is that going to be a problem maybe later on in the tournament?
Well, it could be. Russia have missed a whole host of chances, especially against the Czech Republic, but also yesterday against the Poles. They did have a number of good opportunities and were unable to convert them, unfortunately. I wouldn't be too harsh, though, on Alexander Kezhikov. He's been in excellent form for his club, Zenit St. Petersburg, this season, and he's also done very well for the Russian national team in the build-up to this tournament. For instance, he got a lot of stick for his performance against the Czech Republic after he missed, I think, 7 shots, which went off target. But he was very influential in the build-up. He really works very well with Warshaw and Zagoyev. And I think it would be very hasty to to drop him, because I don't think really Pavlyuchenko impressed too much when he came on the pitch against Poland. He didn't offer Russia anything more than Kezhikov had offered them. But I could say that. It would be it could be a problem for Russia if they just do not start converting these chances. As against better sides, obviously they won't give as many chances away, and it'll be harder to create opportunities if Russia come up against the likes of Germany or Spain, for instance.
Let's move on to Poland. Obviously, they've been fairly impressive at times throughout the tournament. Tim, what have you made of Poland so far?
I think against Greece they started well and seemed to ease off or seemed to freeze a bit. I thought last night they really fought very hard, but obviously it was an emotional game. But I thought they looked good. I think they'll probably beat the Czech Republic and hence go through. How far they go then, I suspect, depends on the draw. But I was impressed with them last night.
Andrew, you're out in Poland at the moment. They are the lowest ranked team in the tournament. Are they riding off their the atmosphere in Poland at the moment?
Oh, undoubtedly. I only recently got in, so I wasn't at the stadium last night. But my goodness, the pictures I saw, shall we say, the good pictures, those inside the stadium. We know what happened outside the stadium. I thought clearly the Polish public has embraced this tournament. Just when I got here, everyone's been remarkably friendly and hospitable. There are red and white shirts everywhere, and I think they have really embraced it. You see, the first game against the Greeks, we've seen this time and time again at these tournaments when the host nation opens up. I think the manager said they were, I can't quite remember the quote, was something like frozen by tension in that first game, and they showed against the Russians. Okay, they had to show it because they had to come out and play. They showed exactly what they're capable of, and of course scored the best goal of the tournament so far.
Andrew, who are your favourites to get through Group A and go on to the quarterfinals?
Well, goodness me, what a group this is. They've all got a shout, haven't they? Greece, if Greece beat Russia, they could get through. The Czechs have got a win under their belt, always important to have that win. Okay, if you push me, I'm going to say Russia to win the group and Poland sneaking into second place.
What about you, Richard? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Andrew, to be honest. I can see Russia getting a result against Greece. They didn't play that well against the Poles, but they didn't play that badly. And on another day, there's a chance to go in. And I think Greece have looked the worst side in Group A. They don't really offer cutting edge in attack, to be honest. I think the Czech Republic will find it very difficult playing against Poland. Poland, they have really been buoyed by the atmosphere. The national stadium yesterday, I was inside the ground, and what an atmosphere. And when you've got 50,000 people cheering you on, obviously that's going to have a massive boost if you're a player, because it just rises you to another level. Yeah, Russia to go through probably as group winners, and Poland to come second.
It's a difficult one to call, though, isn't it, Tim?
It is. I think the Czechs, they seem to blow hot and cold. They look good parts of games and then they seem to ease off. So that's a difficult game. But I would have thought Poland with the crowd behind them, although the Czech support has been fantastic so far. So we'll see. But I would expect Poland to go through, I think.
And Tom?
Well, as you know, I've drawn Greece in the office sweepstakes, so I'm pushing for Greece, but unfortunately they're not particularly high scorers. They're certainly not prolific by any stretch. I think in their 10 qualifying games, they've scored only 14 goals, and 4 of them came against Malta. So that could be their Achilles heel if they can't find the back of the net. So I agree with Richard and Andrew that I think Russia will top the group. followed by the host Poland, who obviously have the home advantage.
OK, let's move on to Group B then. On Saturday, Denmark shocked Europe, I'd say, by beating the much-fancied Dutch team 1-0, while Germany took command of the group by edging out Portugal in a 1-0 win later on. Now, this evening, Portugal will face Denmark, and then Germany will play Holland in a match which could see the Dutch be knocked out of the competition just 5 days into the tournament. Now, Germany midfielder Mats Hummels said on Monday that his team's confident ahead of their match with the Dutch tonight.
I think Holland now absolutely needs to win or face elimination. They won't play as defensively as Portugal, but that's always hard to predict. I expect this match will be marked by more goal opportunities, hopefully mostly on our side. The beauty of this match will be in its intensity. Both teams have to give everything they've got, 100%, not only because the long-standing friendly rivalry between Holland and Germany, but also because of how things stand in the group. A qualification for the quarter-finals will still be possible for them, and for us, it will perhaps already have been achieved.
Now, Tom, Holland's Mark van Bommels called his team a golden generation. He said it's their last chance to really push on and win success with this golden generation. Now, this is a phrase that England fans should be very much aware of. Do you think it's very much do or die for the Dutch this evening?
Well, I think after reaching the World Cup finals in 2010 in South Africa, then hopes are pretty high in Holland. I think a lot of people expect them to do rather well, but after their first fixture, it seems there's a bit of doubt that's crept in. And I think a lot of them actually, after the World Cup final, there's a lot of criticism about the tactics that were employed by the Dutch. It's seemingly quite aggressive compared to Spain's sort of deft touch, as it were. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they regroup after that defeat in the final.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on Holland?
Well, crikey, 28 or 29 was it chances against the Danes, who I guess I'm probably the oldest person in this panel, but I remember it well a generation ago when those Danish players came off the beach virtually and won the tournament. I don't think they'll win the tournament this time, but goodness me, they created a heck of a shock. And I think, Holland, Germany, the height, okay, Poland, Russia was high tension, but for different reasons. This is an absolutely mouth-watering encounter between two great rivals. And really, the Dutch, as we all know, if they lose, they're out of the tournament. Did any of us ever think that after two games, Holland would be going home? If not mathematically, then highly likely, were they to lose tonight. No, I don't think any of us did. They simply have to deliver. And I guess, you know what they have to have? They have to have a little bit of luck. Nobody wins any major tournament without luck somewhere along the line. Perhaps it's Holland's turn.
Richard, Germany kind of ground out a 1-0 win, shall we say, against Portugal. I think it was a fairly comprehensive display, though. Have they established themselves as the strongest team in the competition thus far?
Well, Germany, you just have to look at past records. Germany are an exceptional team, an exceptionally young team as well, with some wonderful players like Götze and Thomas Müller. And they've just got so much attacking potential. Of course, I didn't mention Mesut Ozil. They've just got so much potential at their disposal. And, of course, yes, I do think they're the favourites. I was very disappointed by the Dutch, though, during their game with Denmark. Just their inability to put away the numerous chances that they had. Also, it was very interesting. I was reading a quote in one of the newspapers today from Wesley Sneijder, who was saying how it's time to drop egos within the camp because, for instance, Rafael van der Vaart was speaking out how he was very disappointed to be dropped to a substitutes bench. And really Sneijder was giving a running call to the rest of his team. Now it's time to sort of stop putting our interests first and try and get around the team and behind the team and trying to get us into the knockout stages, because if they don't get a result against Germany, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Andrew, what did you make of the Danish and the young lad Eriksen, who's been very much, there's been a lot of media attention around him. Do you think there's possibly a repeat of their Euro-92 victory?
Oh, goodness me. Eriksen, touted by all and sundry, isn't he, of the leading clubs in Europe. Classic Danish performance in one way, very, very, very efficient, very well organised, not without talent, and took their chance very well, and held on, and actually had a couple more chances to score as well. Whether Denmark actually win another game at the tournament, I'm not actually sure. But certainly, boy, if they put the cat among the pigeons already.
So I know it's only one game in. Obviously, tomorrow we'll know a bit better. If I had to push you, 2 favourites to emerge from the group.
Well, like the other guys, I guess I'd have to say Germany. That over the past, 6, 8 years, they've developed from this rigid, disciplined Germany evolved to this fantastic, enterprising, creative outfit, first under Jürgen Klinsmann and then Joachim Löw, his former number 2. So Germany up to win the group. Not sure they'll win tonight. I think it might be a draw. Crikey, this is, of all the groups, to pick a second team in this group is virtually impossible. I still have a sneaking feeling that the Dutch will go through, but don't ask me how.
Richard, what do you think?
Well, obviously, given my surname, Van Portvlied, I'll be rooting for the Dutch. And I think they do have a chance. I mean, they will raise their game massively for tonight's encounter against the Germans, just because of the rivalry. And the Dutch do have some incredibly good players at their disposal. It's just getting it right on the pitch. I think they were incredibly unlucky against Denmark. So I can see certainly the Netherlands getting at least a draw tonight. And I was pulling off a win against Portugal. Whether it'll be enough to send them through to the next round, well, that's anyone's guess. But I would certainly go probably Germany as group winners and hopefully Holland as the runners-up.
Tim?
I think Portugal, if you read the English press today, there seems to be some dissent in the Portuguese camp. So it'd be interesting to see whether the Danes take advantage of that. I think Denmark could go through. Dutch delight? Tom?
I'd have to agree with Richard and Andrew, yeah. Germany, I think, were very strong favourites to win the whole tournament. But actually, interestingly enough, Spain's manager thinks that Portugal are among the favourites to go through. But actually, despite his wealth of football knowledge, far greater than mine, I would actually disagree and agree with Richard and go for Holland as well.
I guess any team that boasts one of the best players in the world is always going to have a chance of coming through this group of death.
Well, he did himself say that, Ronaldo, I assume you're talking about, he did say that if he can get past the group stage, which I'm confident of, then anything could happen. So naturally he backs his own team and he's joined the Spanish as well. He seemed quite optimistic that their neighbours will join them.
This is the Voice of Russia. The London Bureau of the Voice of Russia is now live on digital radio and online, with news, comment and debate on weekdays between 4 and 7 p.m.
OK, on to Group C now. Italy and Spain drew 1-1 on Sunday, while the Republic of Ireland, they were comfortably beaten by Croatia 3-1 a bit later that evening. Now, the next round of games in this group will be tomorrow. Italy's draw with Spain came as quite a shock to many people, as Italian football is currently embroiled in yet another match-fixing scandal. This obviously has affected the team in their pre-match build-up, as they were beaten 3-0 in one of their friendlies by Russia leading up to the tournament. But Italy captain Gianluigi Buffon said earlier this week that the team, they were just concentrating on trying to qualify from the group.
What we're going through in the Italian Football League isn't going to help, but we need to stay calm. Most Italians support us, and that's the way it's always been. Because at the end of the day, we represent our nation. Football's going through a difficult time in our country, but here we could have the opportunity to bring back national pride and make our fans happy.
Tim, Italy surprisingly good?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it possibly will be Italy and Spain go through. But no, the Italians look good, and in tournaments historically they've built from a slow start. They started quite well, so I think they could go a long way.
Richard, I mean, could Italy do what they always do so well in tournaments by managing to be successful while not always playing at their best?
I think that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, Italy have this habit, just a bit like Germany, of might not have the best side, but always producing results when the big tournament comes around. I remember seeing Italy's match against Russians in the build-up to Euro 2012, and although they lost 3-0, they didn't actually play that badly. They looked very disciplined in the first half, and it was only really late when they made wholesale changes in the second half that the Russians managed to take advantage of that. The Italians, they've got an experienced squad, they've got some very good players as well, so I can certainly sort of see Italy getting into the latter stages of this competition along with Spain.
Andrew, talking about Spain, obviously, if you're the world champions and the European champions, you're always going to come along with quite a lot of a reputation. What were your impressions of the Spanish team on Sunday?
Yeah, no, you come along with a good impression. You also come along and don't play a striker. Goodness me, how many? I just like to ask the guy that I can't remember ever at this stage of a competition a country of that stature playing without a striker, well, out and out striker, shall we say. It just shows how confident they are. It just shows what talent they've got, what depth they've got. But I have a hunch, you see, with Spain. I think they will go a long way, but they're the world champions, they're the European champions. When was the last time a country won 3 back-to-back? I'm not sure there's ever been one.
Now, Tim, you're a Chelsea fan. You're a Chelsea season ticket holder, in fact. Fernando Torres, he had 20 minutes on the pitch. He actually created some good chances for himself, didn't he?
He did create good chances. Unfortunately, he didn't take them. But I think the fact he's getting in the positions is promising, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he came off the bench tonight or tomorrow rather and scored.
Richard, a quick word on Croatia and Republic of Ireland.
Croatia looked impressive, but to be honest, I don't think the Irish looked that impressive. They were in the same group of Russia, of course, and they didn't really impress me in the 2 games that I saw against the Russians. They tried to make the most of their limited ability, and while that can be a benefit. Sometimes you just get found out when you play high-class opposition. For instance, when they were playing the Russians, Ireland were played off the park in Dublin, and were very lucky in a way that the score ended 3-2 in Russia's favour. When the game was played in Moscow, on another day, if Russia's finishing was better, they could have won that game 5-0. So in terms of Croatia, yeah, they look good, but I think we have to see them when they're going to be playing against the Italians or the Spanish to really know how good they are.
So you don't buy Ireland coach Giovanni Trapattoni's comments that he thinks they could win the tournament?
No, it was quite interesting. I was having a chat with Andrea Shavin a few days ago, and I was mentioning that game in Dublin to him, just how good Russia were on the counter-attack, and Shavin's comments were, well, anyone can play well against Ireland because they're just a bunch of pensioners, really, because they're such a slow team. So, no, I don't really think Ireland will be doing very much at this tournament, to be honest.
So who's going to make it through, then?
I can't look past Spain and Italy, to be honest.
Andrew?
Sorry to be in agreement all the time. Yep, absolutely spot on.
Tim?
Yep, absolutely.
Tom?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, finally we move to Group D. On Monday, England and France drew 1-1, while the co-hosts Ukraine came from behind to beat Sweden 2-1 with national hero Andriy Shevchenko scoring a brace in Kiev. So, Andrew, France, the game against England, they only had a couple of shots inside the 18-yard box. Do you think they lack that desire to get into the area?
Well, again, France, flattering to deceive, bags of possession, dominated large parts of the game, but as Laurent Blanc himself has admitted, didn't hurt England enough. And will certainly have to hurt Sweden and have to hurt Ukraine in their last 2 games. I still have quite a lot of faith in France. We know what's happened in the last 2 tournaments, but Laurent Blanc has revitalised them. He has revolutionised them. He has got the players back on side. And I'd be very surprised if they don't put up a really strong show, at least in one of their last 2 games.
Now, England were at times very much backs against the wall. Do you think Hodgson's team is one very much centred around its back 4?
Well, not just the back 4, but also in central midfield with Gerrard and Parker. But, Tim, needs must. England didn't have Wayne Rooney for the first game. They won't have him for the second game. They're probably, in terms of natural raw talent, weaker than they've been for several years. So what do? You bring in a manager who's pragmatic, who's efficient, who's well organised, who knows what he's talking about, and he tries to get the best out of what he's got. And I think that's what Roy Hodgson has done. If England fall behind against the Swedes, what on earth happens then? I'm not actually sure where these points are going to come from.
You mentioned that Wayne Rooney will return from suspension for his team's final game against Ukraine next week. England captain Steven Gerrard said that Rooney would prove pivotal for their final group match.
Yeah, he's fine. I'm sure he's frustrated. I'm sure he regrets doing what he's done. In fact, I know he regrets what he's done. But he's fine, he's coping well, and he's itching to get these games out the way so he can get out there and play himself. And, any team in the world would miss Wayne Rooney. He's a world-class player. He's been one of the best players in the Premier League this season. And we're hoping, we can be in with a good chance of qualifying when he comes back in the third game, and he can be the difference for us to get us into the latter stages of this competition.
Tim, Rooney crucial to England's chances?
I think so. I think the other day England laboured up front. They couldn't retain possession. They didn't have anything about them. If Rooney comes in and is on form, then he could do something. It still worries me who's going to give him the ball. The wingers don't seem to be beating people, so I think there's still issues. But Rooney would certainly strengthen the team.
Now moving on to Ukraine. Very good against Sweden. Andrew, good against Sweden, but when it comes to playing teams like France, will they perhaps come undone?
Well, I think Ukraine were a breath of fresh air the other day. I was genuinely surprised by their movement and their pace. A certain striker, 35 years young, made the tournament virtually his own overnight. But I hear what you say. It is going to be very, very interesting to see what happens on Friday when they play the French in Donetsk, I think it is. Because France, like England, have got to get, well, haven't got to get, but they certainly probably need to get more than a draw out of this. And Ukraine aren't going to win all three games, that's for sure.
Now, it's been reported that there's some unrest, shall we say, in the Swedish camp. Tom, being half Swedish, do you see them as having any chance of qualifying from this group?
Well, as a Swede, I'd naturally say yes, but I mean, with a caveat that they'll have to work pretty hard to actually make it out into the knockout stages. They'll have to work very hard. I wouldn't write them off just yet.
So who are your favourites to go through?
Well, as a half Swede and a half Brit, I'd probably go Sweden, England.
Tim?
It'll be interesting. I think, well, obviously I have to say England and probably France. So I think Ukraine-France will be a cracking game on Friday.
And Andrew?
Well, this is not the group of death, has turned into the group of unpredictability and uncertainty. I'm really, on this one, not sure. I'll put patriotism ahead of practicality and say England in second place with France just about winning the group. But you know what? I wouldn't be at all surprised if either Ukraine or Sweden make it. And will that mean it's going to be too late for Wayne Rooney? We're going to find out. It's going to be a fantastic finale, that group, that's for sure.
OK, well, that's all we've got time for. You've been listening to The Voice of Russia in London, to a special discussion show on Euro 2012 with me, Tim Walklate. Joining me today was Tim Rolls, a sports blogger, Tom Hedegard, a Voice of Russia reporter, and on the phone from Warsaw in Poland, Richard van Portvlied, Russia Today's sports reporter, and Andrew Warshaw, a freelance football writer. Tune in next Wednesday for our second discussion on Euro 2012, which will review all of the group games and look ahead to the quarterfinals of the competition.